Hey, Ag Teacher Thoughts here, coming at you with another video. Well, it's time to prepare for fall. And that means if I want to have the same baskets that I had this year, next year I have to take some cuttings and basically overwinter those cuttings. Now, as many of you know, I am no longer involved with the high school that I was at, which means I'm no longer a professional. I'm no longer bound by the rules of propagation because I'm not going to be selling these. But also, without being a high school teacher with a greenhouse, I'm not going to have access to the same varieties that I like in my baskets as I did when I was in teaching high school. So there, I could order in flats of 50 or 100 of particular varieties that I liked and thought performed well for me. Well, as a general consumer now, those are not going to be available for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my propagation skills. So in this case, we're going to use Dip and Grow rooting hormone, a little bit of water, a dipping bowl, got to wear some rubber gloves, some pruners, a pencil, some tags, and then a tray that has been, it's been wetted up. It's ready to go on that. So we're going to use all of these tools and we're going to go over to our baskets and we're going to select out just the tips of the branches, the good active growing things, and we're going to take cuttings. Now, if you want an in-depth cutting video, I suggest you follow the link down in the description, which is how to take cuttings like a professional. And that's a video where I really go in depth and I talk about every tool that I'm going to use and really spend some time, have some great close-up shots, and explain what the process is. This is going to be a little bit of an overview and kind of an idea of what you should be selecting and what you need to do to be ready for fall, which is definitely get those cuttings done. All right, so let's glove up. Let's get over to our baskets, get those cuttings taken, and then we'll get them stuck. All right, we're over here at one of our baskets that's starting to head south for the winter, so it's pretty much done. And what we want to do for cuttings is we don't want the cuttings that are up here that are doing nothing but blooming. We've had enough with blooms. We need to get in there and get some petunias that are, some cuttings that are for the petunias that are going to be actively growing into what we want. So we want not blossoms, but we would like actual, foliage, some actual structure to the plant. So we're going to have to look in here and find areas like this where we have little tiny cuttings, little tiny sections that we can take a cutting of that are actively growing, that are actually in branch mode rather than flower mode. So we're going to take some tiny ones there. And we're going to have to do a lot of those. And I think we're going to really have to dig to try to get some. That's a pretty small cutting. And then we got to take them and get them stuck before they start to wilt, because once they start to wilt, it's game over. Yeah, this is going to be kind of tough, because a lot of these are just strictly in flower mode. Yeah, because those are all just in blossoms. Yeah, we're going to have to dig hard for this. So the reason we got to get these cuttings done now is once this plant actually hardens off, so it starts to prepare for fall and the tissue gets hard, it's actually not going to want to root really well. It's going to be very, very difficult to root. So we're trying to get this done before that happens. And yeah, see, I'm just seeing some of these as like terminal to blossom. Maybe this isn't the greatest example to start with, but we're here. We're taking cuttings. We're just looking for those branches in here that are in that mode, that they're like, hey, I'm going to produce foliage, not flower. But these are all flower. Not great. And lemonberry is one of my favorites. Yeah, well, we'll just take a big cutting here. I think we can make something out of that one. Let's kind of go around here. We're just looking. My goal is to get like 6 cuttings of each variety that we have here. I didn't think it would be a struggle, but I think it is going to be a struggle. Yeah, not a lot of good cuttings here. Well, I think we have another lemonberry elsewhere, and we can try that. I have some upper material that might work. That blossom off of there. Yeah, I think we're going to be hard pressed to get some of these to take. Just my professional opinion. I am really looking hard for a cutting. Yeah, and this basket's kind of ratty. That's why I want to get it taken down. Well, might have one or two there. These are hard cuttings. You can hear them make the clippers really snap. Yeah. Well, if we get one to take, what we'll do is we'll take cuttings off the cutting, and that's really what we're going to be doing this fall, is taking cuttings off of cuttings to try to get them to work. So we're going to take these hard cuttings. We're going to try to get them to work. So let's take them right over to the tray. Okay, so we have some harder cuttings of the lemon berry. So if I dig through my baskets and I find a better lemon berry, we'll definitely use that. I'm going to tag this row as lemon berry. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to do my mix for my dip tray. We are doing a 20-to-1 on our dip and grow, and there's little measurements there. I explained how this all works in one of my other videos. So there's 1/20th of the volume. We're going to add in water. There's no reason to mix it, because your simple action of coming in and pouring it will mix it. So there's a 20-to-1 of the growth hormone. Pour it all in my dip tray. Okay, well, let's get in here, and we're gonna harvest and stick these cuttings. So as I went through in my previous video, I kind of talked about how we're aiming to clean up the bottom, and we've got to get more than one node underground when we do a cutting. Since these are a little bit harder, I'm going to try to get 2 nodes underground and see if that helps. The petunias are in the nightshade family, which means they will readily root if given the opportunity. So that is helping us, and also I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, well, I think it's 5, 3, 4, 5. We'll do 10. Okay, so I'm going to stick that in there. I think it's a 10-second count. I'll have to look back on my video. But anyway, these will readily root on their own. You don't necessarily need rooting hormone. It just increases your chances if you do use it. So we're just looking for some of these good small cuttings, and they are hard cuttings. So I'm really hoping my 20-to-1 will work. I really want these plants to be kind of greedy and want to grow. But we'll see whether or not that happens. I don't think I've ever taken cuttings quite this hard. So when I say hard, I'm talking about the amount of cellulose that's built up in the plant. So it physically feels harder than a soft stem like a spring growth. When it does that, the plant is less actively growing. So a lot of times it's harder to get something to take off and start growing if it's in a hardened state. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here, is plant material that's in a hardened state. So if we're not successful, we're not successful, but we're going to attempt it. If we don't get these started soon enough, fall's going to step in, and then I won't know what's successful and what's not successful. Because once fall sets in and we get that frost and these plants have died, that's it. I'm out of luck for the year as far as collecting that particular variety. So we're going to try to get this going. And you notice I'm not pouring the hormone over the top of the soil. I'm not soaking them in there. I'm just dipping them in there. I'm counting to 10, and then I'm putting them in the plug tray. So you don't want to go too long on that. Like I said, they will readily root just simply because they're in the nightshade family. They love to root. Think about your tomatoes and how if that stem lays, and this is the flower we're doing, if that stem lays on the ground too long on a tomato, it will form a root. And that's really what we're trying to get to happen here, is we're trying to get that root to the point where, or that plant to the point where it recognizes that it has tissue in contact with some moist soil, and it's okay to go ahead and create roots. So that's what we're trying for. This is going to be a tiny cutting, but again, this is what we have right now. And we will put a humidity dome on these after we get them in the shade, because I don't want to put a humidity dome on now, because it'll shoot that humidity up and it'll shoot that temperature up, and it can damage the plant before we get a chance to get them stuck in the ground. Unless it's going to be an iffy one. We'll try it anyway. That's not going to be a good cutting. This isn't the smallest cutting I've taken. I have taken smaller ones, but it's a fairly small one. See if there's anything else in this one. There's one opportunity for a cutting here. Okay. It's a hard cutting, but it's still difficult to stick them in the soil for whatever reason. There we go. So there is our lemon berry. That's going to be it for lemon berry. I think we're going to do the pitaya next, so we'll go ahead and stick that in there. So I'm going to know what they are. Let's move over there. Okay, so we're going to come in and we're going to try to take some more cuttings here. So I'm looking for anything that's not actively sending up blossoms. I want some of that tissue that's going to basically do some foliage growth. So I'm going to look back a little bit further in here, which is going to be kind of hard. Some of these are really wanting to push blossoms. Yep, I think we're going to end up with small cuttings. Definitely not a project you want to work on when you're on a time constraint for me, or for yourself like I am today. But we will work through it. Should have started a little bit earlier this season taking cuttings, but I didn't get to it. I think this one will work. Well, we're gonna just have to try some of these, get them rooted. If they're starting to do blossoms, we will pinch them to try to promote them to doing foliage. So we're gonna try to trick them to go from blossoms to foliage. May be kind of tough. The pitaya also has a really heavy, it's a sugar. It's a sugar ester, if I remember right. That's what I was told it was. That is there. It's really, really sticky. But we can work on this anyway. We can still defeat that. Try to get our cuttings done. You wouldn't think with a plant this large I would struggle to take cuttings, but I really am. I will be disappointed if we're not successful, because we're really counting on next year's or this year's cuttings to take care of next year's blossoms. And yeah, I found some more lemon berry. Great. I might have been taking cuttings of the wrong thing. That's okay. That's okay. We're gonna try some mid-stem cuttings, see if we can get some of those to take, because I'm just not seeing a lot of good material here to take the cuttings that I want. Doggone it, I don't think it's going to happen with this one, because that's a different plant. Well, we'll try to force it with some other cuttings, trying to get those to do some foliage. It's the only way I think I can do this. Okay, so these cuttings are not working out. They're not quite what I'm looking for. I think they're going to want to push. I think they're going to want to push more blossoms than they are anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to. Oh, these gloves got really super sticky. Try to trick some of these starts into going back into producing leaves rather than blossoms. That's just not going to do it. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for buds that are further back that still have the opportunity to differentiate into foliage rather than blossoms. And I really am struggling to find that. But really and theoretically, we only need one of these to take, and then over the course of the winter, we can magnify that through more cuttings and propagation. So all is not lost. As long as we have something to work with, we should be able to get something to happen. So those of you that are watching this, if you're still with me, we are very close to a membership page. And that membership page is going to have exclusive content. So most likely what it will be is extended cuts and conversations, and maybe even a little off-topic or get-to-know-you kind of thing. So that membership page, I'm probably going to start working on it this very next week. I will be finally crossing the threshold to where I have enough hours, watch hours with YouTube to be able to start offering that as an option. So that will definitely be something to look out for, is when we are actually offering that membership. I'm going to try to make it fairly cheap per month. So I'm not going to quote a price because I don't know yet. I haven't seen all of the YouTube options. I'm still waiting for all of that to finally roll over, but that should happen. That should happen by this weekend. And then you go through an approval process, and then after that, the watch page will open up. I'll also be releasing swag at that time. I've got designs for t-shirts and other ways that you can support the channel and support me in my creative mission to educate about plants and then offer you some sort of entertainment in exchange. So yeah, we're just going to take this harder cutting. I just don't see another option. But I am pretty excited about that. It has been a long process to get to this point. You know, it's been a lot of work. You really have to be consistent in what you do on YouTube to advance. If you just kind of ride along with it, you'll never reach the point where you get a watch page or monetization. And, you know, there are a lot of other topics I could have done that grow pages faster and get money faster, but that's not the point. You know, that's not the point of what I'm doing. The point of what I've been doing here on the channel is I'm here to be all about education and training on plant material and really use my area of expertise. I'm not here to just, make money. I'm here to train and get people to love and enjoy plants the same way I love and enjoy plants. And if I was doing another topic, sure, I could monetize quicker, but you're going to know it's not my topic. This is my topic. This is the area that I love. So that's what I'm going to stick with this channel. We're going to stick with plant topics. Well, let's take a harder cutting here because that's all that's left. Yep. You can hear my disappointment in all of this. This is not the way I wanted it to go. I wanted tip cuttings, but we're not going to get tip cuttings this time of year. The other thing I will probably start after we have our viewer watch page is it looks like I'm going to have time to start doing some lives. So probably some midweek lives will probably work out. So that'll get you the opportunity to ask me questions directly, and kind of we'll do an experiment while we're working on the live, or we'll do plant maintenance or whatever, and get you to answer those hard questions or ask those hard questions about plants, and I'll try to give you the best answer that I can about them. Well, let's see. What else is a must-have? I think pink vein. Pink vein is very, very important for me to get in. So let's do pink vein right now. All right, so I got a little bit more material, so I'm going to work on the pink veined. This is one of my favorite trailers, one of the longer ones that I have used. Tends to perform really well for me. Purple vein is another one I wanted to use, but hopefully this isn't terminal. I think there's a bud there. But I lost the tray of my original, and the one I got in wasn't trailing, which was highly disappointing because I was expecting a nice trailing petunia. That is not what I received. So I will have to wait until I can find someone else that actually carries the trailing version to add that back into my inventory. So if you want to know how I lost it, there's another video. It's titled Shipping, something like Shipping Disaster or, Total Loss or something like that. It's basically this last winter when all my cuttings came in. Some of my cuttings decided to take a tour of the United States, and they got tumbled around in the delivery service and were completely destroyed by the time they arrived out to me. So that I kind of followed that story, and it really did affect our season. I didn't get the baskets that I was looking for. Some of the varieties I wanted I didn't get. I had to change layouts, and then there's always that seasonal delay. How much time did you lose waiting for new plant material to come out? Now, I did have some people help me get those out here really quickly, so within the next week I had plant material. But when you're doing growing and nursery work, every week you're delayed is a week later to your growing season or to your sales season. So I wanted to be very careful about that. Yeah, I don't think there's anything on that one. Yeah, I'm just afraid some of these are just going to be blind. I mean, we can try. We can try. So blind is when there's no bud. There's no active bud to be able to do any new growth. And not flower bud, but like leaf bud. All right, so we're doing kind of some mid-stem cuttings, which is not ideal, but when we're looking for buds, that may be what we're stuck with this time of year. So I'm trying to make sure those lower leaves are taken off. And then we will go back and we will just grab the newer growth when it comes up. We'll take a cutting off of that and then use that. So when you get your cuttings from a grower, so as a one of your growers that you buy all your cuttings from, when you get it from them, you don't always get a solid tip cutting. A lot of times they'll take cuttings off your cutting. So that's kind of what we're going to do, is we're going to take cuttings off of our cuttings to make more cuttings. So it's kind of that replication process. And we're going to hope that as we do that, we get more usable plant material. Because this is not, all this stuff is not ideal. Honestly, a lot of the stuff I got was pretty rough. So I'm pretty used to getting rough plant material. So we're going to do this as our last cutting for the pink vein. Then I think we're going to call it good for cuttings for this video, because it's just going to be the same thing over and over and over again. So anyway, we'll keep going on this video series. So I'm just going to make this a series about how to basically prepare for fall and take your cuttings or your plant material that you want for next year, and then we're going to overwinter it in the greenhouse. Now, this is going to lead to a whole host of problems. Like one, we're going to be dragging aphids, thrips, whitefly, no whitefly, I haven't seen any of those, but aphids, thrips, and possibly spider mites into our greenhouse, which is something that over the winter, without any predators, they can grow unchecked. If you're a grower of firefly petunias, you will know that aphids can kill your firefly petunia. For whatever reason, they're more susceptible to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these cuttings and then we're going to start really working hard on some pest control of those to make sure that we stay on top of it. Once it sets into frost, I'm not worried about new pests coming into the greenhouse. All I have to worry about is the pests that we already have, learning how to control or eliminate those. So yeah, that's what we're going to do, is we're going to start doing a series of videos on this. I still have my sweet potato vine to take care of, our verbena, and a few more petunias that I want to get cuttings of. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. I hope you're learning something. I hope you're watching with your plants, and I definitely hope you subscribe. Ag Teacher Thoughts out.